Hey, my name is Mark Spess, and this video is an update to our last video, which we released several years ago on how to make stop motion films. The last video is way out of date. Technology is really old. There's new software, there's a whole bunch of things out there right now. Um, my background is from working in television commercial animation for several years, as well as reading books, like most people, going on the internet, and also making my own films. So I've been very fortunate, though, to have met a lot of people at an early age of, I guess I was like 18 or 19 when I met like John Ashley and Webster Colcord and Mike McKinney as well. Had to kind of give all those guys credit for what I learned in clay animation specifically. And this video is really just a way for me to share what I've learned from them. We're going to talk about, like I said, motion control, how to remove rigs from your frames. We're going to talk about the software. We're going to talk about 3D photography, which is a new, realm for stop motion ever since Coraline came out. So before I get started, I want to point out that stop motion animation is a really slow process. You need lots of patience and drive to complete films, longer than just a few minutes. And it's not uncommon for films to take many, many years just to create like a 5-minute film. We're talking films where you build your own puppets. We're not using like toys and cereal boxes and stuff like that. We're really making puppets like the one behind me here, where it's clay and it's all sculpted, built completely from scratch. So those kind of films can take a long time. Also consider the cost. You're going to have to buy a camera. You're going to have to buy lights, extension cords. You're going to have to buy software. You're going to have to buy tools. You're going to have to buy equipment. You're going to have to buy supplies like wire armatures. Just as a basic example, you have to buy wire, epoxy, all kinds of stuff. So you got to really consider all that before you embark on stop motion as well. If you want to get first-hand knowledge on the problems faced with doing stop motion full-time, check out some books by Ray Harryhausen, and you'll get a lot more insight than I could give you myself just in this short DVD. Books are a great way to expand your knowledge about animation. One kind of book animators should strive to get are books explaining how to write a good story. That's because the whole point of animating is to tell a good story first, and then to express it through the art of stop motion second. The book called Developing Story Ideas by Michael Rabiger is a good book to start with, but really any book in this genre will be helpful. As I mentioned in the intro to this DVD, pretty much any book that Ray Harryhausen is the author of is going to be a great book for your collection. Most books he wrote explain various aspects of his dynamation process. Dynamation is the term for the way he utilized different techniques that he and his teacher Willis O'Brien invented. Stop motion has its own limitations, and Ray's books show how he overcame those with the technology he had at the time. For the most part, things have remained the same today, except much of the computer, camera, and fabrication technology has advanced. Edward Muybridge books are what VCR technology was to us growing up in the 1980s and 90s. Nowadays, with DVD players and YouTube, you really can't step through videos frame by frame as easily. This is where VCRs used to have the advantage. The Muybridge books detail how animals and humans move through space. In most of his books, animals and people are shown running, climbing, tumbling, hopping, dancing, and many dozens of other activities. Muybridge also placed grids behind the subjects showing how high the various body parts were at different points during the actions. His books are great to study and will help anyone understand how things really move. The Animator's Survival Kit by Richard Williams is another must-have book. Richard's book is a no-nonsense and direct-to-the-point book about how things move. In particular, Richard goes over walk cycles and the various ways different characters move the way they do. For example, women walk different than men, gay different than straight, fat versus skinny, cartoony versus realistic. So even though this book deals with hand-drawn diagrams, everything within it can be utilized for stop-motion puppet animation. Once you learn the basics of how things move, timing is the next logical step. Timing for Animation by Harold Whitaker and John Halas is a good book to solve that critical issue for animators. If you want to figure out how many frames it takes and how to space an object over time. This book shows through diagrams and its theories based on physics. Without timing, your animated puppets might zip around at the speed of light when you really want them to move as slow as a snail. Both authors break it all down in a very easy to understand way, and I highly recommend everybody get a copy before you start animating. The Illusion of Life by Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston is what animators used to call the animator's Bible. The book details the history of Walt Disney's animators that were later dubbed the Nine Old Men. This group of dedicated animators didn't have anyone before them to ask questions and literally wrote the book on how animation works and looks best for audiences. Every animator who came after the Nine Old Men has followed the rules that they laid down, so The Illusion of Life is a great starting point when it comes to understanding the fundamentals of animation. A very fun and helpful aspect of this book are the little flipbook animations showing different principles in detail. This book is definitely a must-buy. As I mentioned in the book section before, story is the most important part of your film. You can have poorly made puppets and sets, but if the story is good, you can still hold the interest of your audience. If you're new to making stop-motion films, don't get caught up in trying to make a feature or even a 20-minute film. Start small because most people give up when they aim too high and then realize what is really involved in making these kinds of films. Roughing out your story, characters, and plot into a summary will be a good place to start. From here, designing your characters and locations is where it all begins. If you have a vision of where your characters live, drawing it on paper will give you a good reference when you draw your storyboards. It keeps things consistent. Drawing your puppets based on the story descriptions will help in these early stages too. The next step will be to figure out your aspect ratios. 4:3, which is 139 by 106 pixels at any scale, and 16:9, 184 by 106 pixels also at any scale, are the most common ratios of width to height. 4:3 is for old-style TV sets, and 16:9 is for widescreen. You can do this in Photoshop by first making a new document at either 139 by 106 pixels, which is 4:3, or 184 by 106 pixels, which is 16 by 9, and then sizing those images up as large or small as you need to draw inside of. Post-it notes can also be used and is a popular low-budget method of making quick storyboards. Roughly sketching out your scene at the top of the note with some dialogue and a scene number below is the bare minimum of what you would need. Stick them on your wall or on a piece of poster board, and editing is a snap. Just remove notes or add them in wherever you like. If you are good at drawing, you can make your paper template large for lots of detail. Again, Photoshop is a good place to make these, but you can draw out a template using an ink pen and a ruler. When you're done, you can make copies of these in a photocopier to save time. It makes it easier if you punch holes and keep these in a binder for easy arrangement. For more complicated productions, you can add notes, lighting ideas, dialogue, the action, length of shot, who's animating, the shot number, or whatever you need to keep things easy for your production to understand no matter which department they are in. Once you've got your storyboard system created, then it's time to start drawing. Make sure everything is simple and easy to understand visually. For example, don't put a flower behind your character where you can't see it if he's going to pick it up. The same goes for gestures. If a puppet is gesturing to another puppet and their arms are angled away from the camera, it won't be understood. Always give your puppets a clear and strong pose in your scene where the camera can see it, and you should be okay. Don't add anything that distracts from the main action of the characters, like dancing frogs outside of a window when the character inside is doing something important, like finding a key and putting it in his pocket. He might use the key later and the audience will wonder, where did he get that? Don't add camera moves, cut to new scenes, or add anything unnecessarily. Tell the story, make the point, and keep it simple. If it's an action shot that requires lots of cuts, make sure every shot you use is long enough to register with the audience. If it's too fast, your audience won't get what's happening. Scan or compile your individual drawings in an editing program, and you've now got an animatic. The animatic tests the flow of your scenes as well as the timing. Later, you can remove still images with the actual shot until you've replaced them all. You'll just have to splice in the recorded dialogue for your characters, which we'll cover in the next section. If you have the cash, Storyboard Pro is a dedicated software program for currently $899 here. But for that, you can get an editing program like Sony Vegas and a paint program to make your storyboards with. I'll leave it to you to decide what's best, as the program is marketed towards studios and experienced storyboard designers to streamline the process for them. Recording the voices for your characters is a very easy process. All you need is your computer, a microphone, and some audio recording software. Then you break your voices down in another program that splits it up into chunks or frames that represent the number of frames you record per second. You can choose between many different microphones, from simple microphones to very expensive studio-grade microphones. For the hobby home user, I recommend the Blue microphones. They come in many models, but the Yeti is one of the best for the price. It's just over $100 USD and can be bought on Amazon.com. I like this mic because it can record a large range of audio frequencies and plugs into a computer with a USB connection, so you don't need to spend hundreds of dollars on stands, cords, or any other hardware. If you plan on making your film with a very low budget, a simple computer microphone for a few dollars will work too. It just won't give you the same recording quality. No matter which mic you choose, you will need software to make your recordings. Audacity is a free program that will work just fine. For more advanced recording, editing, and sound modification options, SoundForge Audio Studio will get the job done too. For the producer or high-budget filmmaker, I highly recommend that you hire a voice actor, someone who has experience working in commercial, feature, or personal projects that you can hear. Voice actors really are actors and can add inflections and nuances that anyone just starting out won't understand. And most voice actors will be able to record their voices on their own personal equipment and simply email you the MP3 or WAV files. So don't hesitate to use Google and search for voice actors to help with your films. After you have your script recorded into sound files for each of your characters, it's time to break it down. Let's start with the most unique program. Dragon Stop Motion is a stop-motion capture program that has a built-in lip-sync program and is also effectively simple. You do not even need to use an exposure sheet. Simply set your frames per second to the desired number. Next, click on the Window tab to view your audio controls. Click the Load button to find your audio file and it will automatically convert it and show you a waveform. From here, you simply scroll back and forth or use your left and right arrow keys to listen to the corresponding sound. You can enter your word phrase in the box below it and also type in individual letters known as phonemes or the sounds of the letters that you hear.
You got mail, baby!
In this case, it is of a person saying, "You got mail." As you type, an exposure sheet is also being automatically filled in. From there, you can enter notes, the animator's name, the shot numbers, the director's suggestions, or whatever you like. Print it out and you are all set to animate old school style as well as new. As you animate frames, you simply slide your audio in the timeline where it needs to go when it's time for your puppet to speak. You can find Dragon for $275 USD at www.stopmotionstore.com. LipSync Pro is the latest incarnation of lip-sync programs that is compatible with almost any kind of audio file and even works on my Windows Vista 64-bit machine. It is robust and made by the same guys who made Stop Motion Pro, a very popular stop-motion capture program used by Aardman Animations, creators of Wallace and Gromit. To use this program, you first need to create a new project. Simply click File, then click New Project. From here, you browse for the audio file of your character speaking. Next, you choose a mouth set. The standard set can be found in your C, Program Files, LipSync Pro folder. If you have the time, you can make your own sets of mouths, but it's not really necessary. Just choose any mouth set you like from the list. Next, make sure to set your frames per second. Click OK and your project will now load. Once it loads up, the process is similar to Dragon. You can select chunks of audio in the waveform at the top, and then listen to the sounds. On the right side of the screen, you would double-click the corresponding mouth shape that loaded from your mouth position file. You can also click on the shortcut keys associated with the description to speed up the process. One thing to point out is you can fill in every single line with the mouth position, or you can do this just at the beginning of where the sound starts. It is sometimes more efficient to add it only to the beginning, but it's a matter of choice. Once you've completed your new exposure sheet, you can print it and check off the frames as you go with the pen. Or, if you like, you can export it as an AVI file and import it into Stop Motion Pro for rotoscoping. We'll cover rotoscoping in a future part of this video, but in essence it works by viewing frame by frame your exported video and lining up the mouth positions as it changes in your Stop Motion Pro timeline. Again, you can find this software at stopmotionstore.com. You can buy it direct from the official website, but buying from our store supports creating more tutorials like these.